Thank you. Deputy Loughlin, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. I think there's no doubt in saying that the time of being born and the time of giving birth has to be the most vulnerable time in anybody's life, both for the infant being born and for the mother that is giving birth. And as a nation, we absolutely owe those women and their children the very best of professional care and support in the highest end hospital with all the necessary equipment should anything go wrong. I propose to make a few points initially in relation to the maternity care itself, and then come back to speaking about the situation with Holles Street and the National Maternity Hospital relocation. In general, just in relation to maternity services, it's absolutely very clear that the provision of accessible, safe and high-quality obstetrician-led maternity services to all mothers and babies, regardless of where they live, in whatever part of the country, must be the core objective of public health policy. And it's increasingly clear now that our national maternity infrastructure is under strain, and it does need serious review and investment to make it sufficient to meet the needs of the country over the coming years. And any debate on maternity services does need to include a discussion about what greater role community midwifery can play, the urgent need for a greater number of consultant obstetricians, and the level of investment that is needed in physical infrastructure. Of course, in Dublin we do agree with proposals to relocate the maternity hospitals alongside acute hospitals, and that absolutely makes sense. When we look at the OECD reports in relation to this, Ireland has one of the lowest ratios of obstetricians to patients, and that again tells its own story. There is a huge need for investment in maternity and neonatal services around the country. We believe that obstetrician-led services must be a priority, and we are calling to have them in every single maternity hospital in the country. It is crucial that current maternity services are protected and enhanced rather than downgraded. And we have to look at those outside of Dublin who must have a high-quality health and maternity services. And these include, as my colleague Deputy Kelleher said, anomaly scans, which are extremely important in monitoring the development of the baby in the womb and are carried out as a matter of routine in the main maternity hospitals in Dublin and Cork, but only in some of our regional maternity units. For example, women in Cavan and Monaghan who want to have an anomaly scan have to travel to Dublin in order to get that. And that's deeply unfair and a source of much anxiety for parents-to-be. Just going back in relation to Holles Street, which is a place I know well, my 10 younger siblings were born there. So in my younger years we were trotted up, the car was outside where we would wave to our mother and whatever new sibling had arrived at that point. But when we think that it was a hospital built in 1892 and that women are going in and at their most vulnerable point in their lives, Holles Street is absolutely not fit for purpose. And, Minister, when you and the Government announced last November that there was going to be a relocation, I think that you got great accolades and there was great fanfare in relation to it, and deservedly so if the details were what we thought they were. But the devil is in the detail. The details were not worked out properly, and now it is a mess. And the Government have made this mess in their own making. It has not been open and transparent, and I think it has caused massive confusion and anger among the public. Everybody agrees that a new maternity hospital is urgently needed. To hear over the last week that clinicians have resigned from boards as they have genuinely held concerns about the future ownership of the maternity hospital is extremely worrying. Myself and my party find it very hard to believe that the state would not own any maternity facility that they would be investing at least €300 million in. The ownership would absolutely have to reflect this investment from the state. The Mulvey report, which again my colleague has referred to, forms the basis of what has yet to be negotiated, as a legal deal between Holles Street, the HSE and St Vincent's Group. This surely would allow an opportunity to lock down the concerns on absolute clinical and corporate governance independence. The new hospital must be completely ethically independent of any religion. This Mulvey report also allows government to negotiate a line that should and will reflect the taxpayers' investment. While a CPO, I understand from recent coverage, was not legally possible at the time of negotiation, surely a 999-year lease may help to resolve the ownership issue, as the land, we have to acknowledge, is owned by the sisters and they are donating use of it to the state. Certainly, locating the maternity hospital on a territory hospital is recommended best practice. It is also a teaching hospital and located next to UCD. My party, Fianna Fáil, also believe that any private income from maternity patients should be state-owned, as is the practice now in Holles Street. I know that many, if not all of us here in this House, have received many emails and contacts over the last week in relation to this. And unfortunately, but it is the case that the redress scheme and the dubious history of the mother and children situation in relation to the religious orders has unfortunately been caught up in this. And I do accept that it is a separate issue, but unfortunately, in the minds of the Irish people and in the minds of the taxpayers as well too, we cannot separate all of those issues. So we absolutely have to do our very, very best to give comfort to those that are concerned, and rightly so. And Minister, you have asked for a month, and I would say that month needs to be put to the best possible use in relation to making that division. It's very clear what the people need, it's very clear what the people want, and having a very strict division between state and between religion to ensure that all of those patients in many years to come, both the expectant mothers, the mothers themselves, the young children, the infants born both before birth and after birth, they need to be ensured that they will have the very, very best possible support and medical care not connected to a religious ethos. So thank you for your time.